Today marks day 2 of the G20 Social Summit. Delegates from across the globe are expected to discuss global matters that have a devastating impact on vulnerable communities. Newzroom Afrika's Zineco is following that gathering, and he joins us now live. Zineco, when we talk about vulnerable communities around the world and the very many issues that impact them, on the agenda will certainly be things like climate justice, energy, democracy. Tell us about some of the other themes.
A very good morning to you, Michelle. Well, what has been clear as far as the countries, the G20 presidents in South Africa and the other countries in the global south is that the focus has been, on just energy, has been on climate, has been on solidarity, but also, the importance of having a sustainable future. So if you look back at the previous G20 meetings which have taken place in Brazil, Indonesia, their themes have been centered around issues that have to do with energy and climate. So I'm going to take you back to Indonesia in 2023 and India, I beg your pardon, the India summit in 2023. The theme there was about one earth, one nation, one world, but also a sustainable future. If you look at the theme that was of that meeting in Brazil, it was also centered around sustainable world, but also looking at climate change. If you look now at the theme of South Africa's, G20 presidency, we're talking about equity, we're talking about solidarity, we're talking about sustainability. So these are some of the themes that the Global South has been championing, over the past 4 years. So that's what will be drafted into the declarations set out today. The delegates are going to be, they will break into different commissions where each commission will deal with a various issue, but all underpinned under sustainability and climate change. So let's take a listen to the Deputy President of South Africa, Paul Mashatile, when he was asked about whether, the declarations of this summit are going to get a hearing later this week at the Leaders Summit, which is going to be held in Johannesburg later this week.
The important thing is that the declaration of the G20 Social Summit will fit into the discussion of the G20 leaders who are starting their meeting on Saturday. So we want to make sure that when the G20 leaders adopt their declaration, they must factor in issues that come from the social summit. The important thing with the social summit, as you can see, we have brought in civil society and many NGOs, really organizations that come from grassroots, representing people on the ground.
So that's Deputy President Paul Mashatile there, Michelle, committing and promising the delegates at this social summit that their declarations will be on the agenda later this week. Well, there have been some concerns, though, Michelle, whether, this particular summit in South Africa is going to get to that, item of declaring these declarations and adopting them, because there are some concerns from the United States of America who are reportedly calling for this summit not to adopt the declarations. However, we know for a fact that South Africa is committed that it will do everything accordingly as it has been done in previous summits. So we're looking forward then, Michelle, to hear what these declarations are going to be specifically at the end of today. However, they will be, adopted tomorrow when President Cyril Ramaphosa and the Brazilian president are going to be here closing off the social summit in Boksburg.
Right. So, Zineco, before we let you go, as you mentioned, Brazil, India and South Africa now hosting the last 3 G20 summits, championing perhaps more than any other G20 nation would have in the past the challenges of the Global South. From the 1st of December, the US takes over. We just heard from President Cyril Ramaphosa when he said the word inclusive and inclusivity has become a hated word in some parts of the world. At the social summit, that will certainly be a question on how the decisions taken there might be undone under the US's tenure.
Yeah, so the interesting part, Michelle, about declarations of a G20 summit is that they become policies of the global nation. So if you are talking about a G20 gathering such as this one that's here in South Africa, the declarations become a blueprint of what these top nations, the top 20 nations, should be advocating in the next 12 months. So if this current G20 summit in South Africa, adopts declarations that have to do with matters that are affecting Global South, and to be more specific, vulnerable communities, that will then force the G20 leaders to really come up with programs that are going to be addressing those issues, but not just addressing them virtually or verbally or through policies, but also put in the money so that the money can drive those programs. And what has also been concerning, though, is that some delegates here have concerns about whether the USA is going to be as inclusive as South Africa has been, as inclusive as Brazil was in 2024. But they are saying that they are preparing for a more resistant USA in terms of including their inputs, inviting them onto the platform. But they are saying that they've already come up with ways in which they'll be able to pass their concerns, their proposals and their agendas through at the US summit, at the US leg of the G20 summit. So it's going to be clear then, when the US officially takes over, what is it that they will say will be their priority and their agenda, and then whether these declarations which are going to be adopted here are going to find expressions on the priorities of the US presidency of the G20.
Zineiko Mhlaba is live to us there in Boksburg.